And what we're going to talk about is the O and elbow. And we're going to jump into that with Mr. Eric Baker here. Got the pleasure of meeting Eric at our Train the Presenter Advanced course in Fort Lauderdale area, Miami area. And this guy's charismatic and he's got a lot of energy. So I hope I didn't set you up too much, but you ready to talk organizational model, Eric?
I'm so ready to talk about the org model. And yeah, ELBO is one of those fantastic acronyms that we learned. I was like, heard that the first time. I was like, that is indispensable. I like that. And I have had coffee, so hopefully I will be just as energetic as you portray me to be. So, you know, I've always told people, I'm like, you know, I have built a great business on coffee and residual anxiety. So, you know, that's like the golden ticket for real estate, I think. Do what now?
Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are a little bit? You're from Atlanta, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Lived here my whole life, yeah, been in real estate now for almost 10 years, just shy of 10 years, been a very fascinating journey so far. I always remind people that you know, out of the great successes I've been able to have, I've been very fortunate. It is important to note that my first year in real estate, I made $2,000, gross $2,000. And so, you know, people always say, oh, I love real estate. I want to get into real estate because there's no ceiling to my income. There is also no floor to your income. You can make a negative in a year if nobody told you. And you know, I was in the very rare position where I was like, man, you know, I'd like to just make enough to file taxes. And so there is a point that you get to where the IRS just goes like, just keep it. You clearly need it more than we do. So I always tell, yeah, exactly. I always go over that because, you know, it's important to know, you know, because we hear so many voices in real estate about, oh my gosh, I've been so successful doing this. Oh, I made $1 million doing this. Oh, I made $1 million doing this. I've been successful doing this. But that's great, but it can kind of make you feel like you're not doing enough or you're not operating well enough if you don't have that success right off the bat, and you may not. And if you don't, that's okay. And it's to really impress. It's not to impress you. It's just to impress upon you that it's totally doable for you by just going through the systems. And so I think this is just such a wonderful class that Region is putting on, as far as breaking down the models, because it's truly fundamental to your business. So who I am, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, been in real estate about 10 years. I am an individual agent, but that just means I'm the only licensed one. I have a ton of leverage in my world, which we're going to talk about, which is why I like talking about the organizational model, because there's a lot in here that's super helpful when you talk about getting leverage, because it's the third L, you know, leads, listings, leverage. And leverage is one of the indispensable things in growing your business and truly running a functioning business. And it's kind of the, you know, there's so many concepts in real estate where it's like, you know, moving from entrepreneurial to purposeful. And that means like running from a solo to an entrepreneur, or from a solo entrepreneur to a real full-on business owner. And leverage is one of the biggest keys of that. So we're going to talk about that. But I am an individual agent. I have sold close to 200 homes in my career, maybe even a little over 200 homes, and did almost 16 million in closed volume last year as a solo, and that was through 36 home sales. And so that's kind of the background on me. I've been on our Agent Leadership Council for 6 years, and one of our Keller Williams Luxury members and the co-chair of our KW Luxury Committee within our office in Sandy Springs. And so, yeah, and if you have any referrals to move to Atlanta, would be happy to be your guy in the Atlanta area. So we will go ahead and dive in. And you know, in this whole Zoom world, it's great because I can be in Miami and be at home at the same time. Now, having said that, I would much rather actually physically be in Miami, but or in South Florida as a whole. But I like having interaction. And so feel free to, unmute yourselves and ask questions or interact, send things in the chat box, and raise your hand, because I'm happy to interact with you guys. And as many cameras as y'all want to turn on, I love seeing faces. I'm a people person. I don't think anybody got into real estate because they like sitting behind a desk all day. I had a desk job once, and that didn't last very long. So I was like, not a desk job person. So when we talk about, and Sebastian, I'm not sending you any money. When we talk about the organizational model, I want to kind of know, and y'all can put it in the chat, or you can kind of ask it. Where are you guys at in your business? I want to kind of know a little bit of a demographic, because depending on where everybody is, we may spend a little bit more time on which level.
I am completely new.
Completely new.
Have not done anything.
Love that. Love that. How many like rainmakers do we have? Do we have any like real kind of like rainmakers, or a lot of people who are solo agents? I'm seeing a lot of solo agents. Solo. Awesome. Okay, great. So with that, I kind of thought that may be the case. Awesome. New rainmaker. I like that, Laura. Yep. Awesome. 2 years in. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about kind of the beginning part of the MREA organizational model. And so if you have your books with you, we're on page 158 in the MREA. And so we're going to kind of follow along how it's written in the MREA and kind of go through this. So thanks to seeing a breakdown of where a lot of you are, with your permission, we're going to go ahead and dive into the fundamentals of leverage. By a show of hands, for those of you who have your camera on, how many of you feel like you need more leverage in your life? I know certainly I do. Awesome. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And there's some important things to know about leverage that people get mistaken. And so there's 3 keys to the organizational model that they have on page 159 through the rest of it on your MREA. And it's hire help, hire talent, and train and consult. And so those are the 3 topics we're going to be going over in order. So hire help, hire talent, and train and consult. So on 158, it kind of talks about an overview of the organizational model. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people find themselves kind of in this middle paragraph, which says, people are always asking me when or how they'll know when it is time to hire their first person. I tell them that it is knowing when to hire a contractor or a maid. We could easily do most of the work that needs to be done around the house, but at a certain point in our lives, we look around at home in a very natural way. And, oh, I skipped a line. We look for help in home in a very natural way. When you don't have anyone to do that work for you, it's like a second job. On Thursday nights, you're a housekeeper. On Saturdays, you're a lawn man or lawn woman, and so on. In other words, if you don't have a maid, you are one. If you don't have a lawn man, you are one. And in business, if you don't have an assistant, you are one. Now, some things I want to pause on and break down in that paragraph. The first thing is, I think a lot of people mistake when they look at leverage for their business, and we look at real estate, they mistake and they think, oh my gosh, I feel so overwhelmed. I must need a full-time assistant. That's not always the right fit. Too many people leapfrog over leverageable items to go straight for something that is going to end up not being super effective. And we're going to go in more detail on that. But to back it up a little bit, sometimes some of the most fundamental elementary leverage that you can get in your life and in your business is actually freeing up some of your time at home. And so, for example, I have someone who comes to my house to detail my car. I'm kind of a fanatic. I like my car being clean. And so I have somebody who comes to the house, and I can be up here. I could be doing this right now and have him downstairs washing the car. Comes to my house, and it's really not that much. He's done in about 2 hours, and I pay him like $90. Now, if you think about the return on that investment, and Lord knows it takes me longer to wash and detail my car. We're talking about like a 4-6 hour process when I get behind it. But you talk about something freeing up 4 hours of my time for $90. Okay. Now, one of the most fundamental concepts that I've learned that I would encourage all of you to write down is that everything we do can equate to an hourly wage. Now, really think about that. Everything we do can equate to an hourly wage. So then the question comes, what's your hourly wage? What are you worth? And it is not equal, right? When you're on a listing appointment and you're having interactions with your clients and you're having objection handling scripts and you're going over with them, and you're talking about the market and you're talking about how to get their home ready for the sale, you're getting paid significantly more in that time frame than you are when you're washing your car. So think about when we talk about leverage, leverage is just an opportunity to free up more of your time. But leverage has an hourly wage to it. And so when you're working on admin stuff, you're paying yourself an hourly wage. But what is it? And when you're on a listing appointment or you're on a buyer appointment, you're also getting paid an hourly wage. What is it? And so when you embrace that concept, what that allows you to do is really lean into and maximize and put yourself in the highest paying hourly jobs and tasks that you can possibly get into. So the more jobs you can do and the more time you can spend where you're getting paid $1,000 an hour, the more successful your business is going to be. And then when you break that down, go all the way down the totem pole to what is the lowest paying job that you do. And so when I looked at my life and my business and my career, the lowest paying items that were absorbing quite a lot of my time: grocery shopping, cleaning the house, cleaning my car. Those are all things that I leveraged. You look around and you see all the technology that we have nowadays. You have DoorDash, you have Instacart. You have all these different things that literally allow you to free up more of your time. And so what I started doing is the Whole Foods next to me, which I get my groceries from, the Whole Foods is like a 15-minute drive. Well, if I look at it, that's 15 minutes out, 15 minutes back, and about 30 minutes shopping. That's about an hour of my time, right? Well, the delivery fee is like $15. That's $15 an hour. I can take that same hour and rearrange it and put myself in a position where I'm getting paid a whole heck of a lot more than that $15, right? And so by leveraging these small tasks, you're going to be amazed at how much opportunity that opens up for you in your business. Because what happens is that too many people get so caught up, particularly in real estate, because we are ultimately responsible for our own activities. Nobody is standing over you. Nobody is standing behind you going like, hey, did you do this? Hey, did you do this? Hey, did you do this? We're responsible for that check-in time for ourselves. And so what happens is that so many people get into real estate, particularly if it's a secondary career after coming out of a more corporate environment, which a lot of people do. It's kind of this wild, wild west mentality of like, oh my God, there's nobody checking up on me. And you kind of get drunk on your freedom, but then you also get so caught up in the busyness of it that you don't actually focus on the business of it. And there's an important delineation that you have to learn, which is that there is a difference between busyness and business. And are you truly in charge of your business, or are you just managing busyness? And I want you to really think about that, if you're really running a business or if you're just managing busyness. And that's a delineation that you really need to make and lean into. And Laura, I see your comment when you say you hired your admin. making doctor's appointments, daily life chores. It's amazing how much freedom that opens up. You know, when you lean into that and you start realizing we don't even notice how much time we spend doing these tasks. I mean, think about it. If I woke up, cleaned the house, did the dishes, did some laundry, went to the grocery store, cleaned my car, for me, that's like 6-7 hours out of my day, just like that. Those are all things that are very easily leveraged out, right? And they're a lower hourly wage than what you would pay somebody else. And so what happens is that agents will get in, we get to this feeling of being overwhelmed and we're like, oh my gosh, and our knee-jerk reaction is, oh my gosh, we need to hire a full-time admin, without ever really stopping and pausing before doing that and looking back and looking at all the other areas in your life where you can add leverage to free yourself up with more time, right? Are y'all hearing what I'm saying? Awesome. So when you talk about the hourly rate and you talk about narrowing it down, I want to throw out some options here. Y'all send in the chat or shout some things out. What are some personal ways? Because like I said, for me, grocery shopping, cleaning cars, cleaning house. What are some other ways that you can really leverage yourself at home? I know, Lori, you had said, Doctor, I robot vacuum. I do have one of those too, and that's a stand-in for my housekeeper in the in-between times. What else? What are some other areas of our life? Yard people, right? See, I forgot about yard people because I live in a townhome. And so I knew that a long time ago. I'm like, I live by myself. I don't want to touch it. If it's on the outside of the house, I don't want to touch it. What are kids for if not to do chores? Yeah, exactly. You know, I don't have any of those either. So, you know, I try to keep a simple life in this world. But yes, see, using your kids for those kind of things, that's what I was used for as a child. So, yep. Somebody throw out one or two other things. What are some other things that you can really think about that are low hourly rates in your life that you're able to leverage out? Pet walkers, yes, that's an awesome one. We actually have, yep, pet walkers, grooming. Those are awesome. We actually have somebody in my neighborhood. I don't have any pets, but we have somebody in our neighborhood that is like a dedicated neighborhood dog walker. And good Lord, every time you leave the house, she's walking around with like 15 dogs. It looks like something from a Disney cartoon. But yeah, those are all awesome opportunities that are low barrier of entry that allow you to immediately start freeing up some time in your personal life. We skip and we just look at our business. We say, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed by my business that I must only have to have leverage there. Not necessarily. Turn back around and look at your personal life too and see where you can leverage that first, okay? So once you feel like you've kind of personally leveraged yourself and gotten to a place where you're more comfortable, you have more free time at home, then the next step is to really then look at your business. And so what we're going to do is on page 159, moving along to the other side of the page here, you can see when doing all you can do, hire an administrative help. Now, once again, a lot of people jump directly into just like, oh, I want a full-time admin. That might not be the best move for you right off the bat. So again, we're going through step by step, building this foundation. So let's talk about some ways to first layer in what that looks like. Now, something I want you to ask yourself is truly look at your business and say, do I need an admin or do I need systems? Because I find a lot of people get into this and they feel like they need an admin, but they hire an admin with no system, with no predictability, with no part of their business really being fundamentally built. So you really need to ask yourself, do I need an admin or do I need a system? Because spoiler alert, if you don't even have a database, you probably aren't ready to hire a full-time admin yet. You really need to lean in to your systems because a lot of people, again, kind of skip that step. We want to piggyback and kind of like go to where we think we want to go without looking at the fundamentals. Do you need an admin or do you need systems? Now, sometimes you may need both. If you happen to have started a business or you've been doing it for a while and you're running up and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like everything is so busy, and it's just like I can't focus on anything, and I have too much business, and I can't even enter names into a database, then you may need both. You may need systems and admin help, but a lot of agents, particularly if you're newer, you may not necessarily need an admin as badly as you need systems. So again, the whole organizational model is based on fundamentally starting at the foundation of the property, right? And so if you look at it just like a house, you're building a business just like you're building a house. There's too many people who are so excited about getting walls up that they just start throwing stud walls up without even having ever poured a foundation first. And if you've ever done new construction, you know that probably the longest, most ungratifying part of building a home is the foundation. It looks like they're grading dirt for 6 months, and then it looks like they're pouring concrete for another 6 months. And then it's like, then all of a sudden you see the walls go up, and you drive by it 2 days later, and there's a roof and windows and everything else is done. You're like, holy crap, where did that come from? But that's how important the foundation is to the whole structure. You can put a house on top of a really good foundation relatively quickly if the foundation is right. And so the important part that we're going through with this org model is starting at the fundamentals, starting at that foundation. And even if you've been doing it for a while, God knows, it wasn't until I think my fourth or fifth year that I went back and revisited and went like, okay, I've got a great business. I have no systems. I have no model. I have no foundation. I just started running and going in circles, and then I started closing deals, and then I just went straight for it. And you know what? It ended up costing me in the end, because what happened was I sold my first successful year, mind you, because we all talk, we talked about my first year, the $2,000 year, but my first successful year, I sold 19 homes. The next year I sold 24 homes. The next year I sold 27 homes. And then you know what happened? I sold 9 homes the next year, because I never paid attention to the foundation. And what happened is that what I was doing was unsustainable, and I didn't even realize it. And so that's the problem, is that when we start operating, we start building that house without having a foundation. What ends up happening is that one day when there's enough weight on top of that, then you realize, oh my God, I don't have the fundamental basics that I need to have a really successful business. And so really turn around and look at that. And so when we talk about systems and the importance of systems, the systems truly are the anchoring foundation to your entire structure of your business. And then when we talk about systems, you may have heard this before, but if you haven't, it's a good one to hold on to. The best system is the one you're actually going to use. The best system is the one you're actually going to use. Right? Too many people overcomplicate it, and there's been thousands of dollars on all these different systems that have promised to just make them just like, oh, it's going to make me work like a machine, and I'm going to be fantastic, and everything's going to be awesome, and I'm spending $1,200 a month on this system, and they never use it because it's too complex, it's too complicated, they don't have the time, you don't have the bandwidth, and you don't want to mess with it. The best system is the one you're actually going to use. Now, one of the acronyms that I always like is KISS. KISS. That stands for keep it simple, stupid. That is basically the fundamental to what I have realized in my career. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. I now run all of my stuff. I have a very high functioning spreadsheet for my database. I know, revolutionary, a spreadsheet. But it's because I went through and I had these systems and I had these big CRMs that you paid thousands of dollars to use. And I tried to lean into all these things. I put everybody in there and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And it's going to change everything. And then it ended up being so complicated that I got scared of the own system that I had bought into, right? How many times have you felt like you go out and you try to do something, you try to make something happen, and then you overcomplicate your own thing so much that you get scared of what you just built? How many of you have done that before? Yeah, 10 million%. Yeah, at 100%. I feel like we've all done that, where we almost try to reinvent the wheel and go like, oh, okay, well, if it's just so good, it's going to revolutionize everything. Not necessarily. The best system is the one you're going to use. So go back to the basics and keep it simple. So start with a database. Do I have a really high functioning database? Yes or no? Start there. And use command. Command is free to you. Command is free. It's easy. It's simple to use, and it's not overly complex. You can make it complex. You can add things to it if you want to, but it doesn't need to be complex. Use it for what it's basically there for. Keep track of your clients. So one of the quotes that I've kind of came up with and realized through trial and error is just don't allow yourself to become overwhelmed by the complexity of your own creation. Don't allow yourself to be overwhelmed by the complexity of your own creation. We all tend to do that, particularly when we're, exactly, hashtag overthinker. That's, yes, 100%, that is me. And so, you know, we think that if we just think big enough and we just try to reinvent the wheel, and we think if we can just come up with something even better and more refined, and we spend all this time, and it's part of the natural entrepreneurial brain, but it can also short circuit your productivity because you build something so complex, you get overwhelmed by the complexity of what you've built. And then what happens when we feel like it's too complex, we don't use it. And then we wonder why we feel overwhelmed and unleveraged and we can't do anything. It's because you haven't even taken the fundamental step to really have a high functioning foundation. So start there. Now, if you do go like, hey, look, I've got some systems, or I need some systems, but I don't have time to implement it, then you're ready to move to that next part. You've personally leveraged, and then you've started leveraging some of your business. You have a system, or you need a system, and you have a lot of business going on. Then the next thing is to hire an admin, but hire them. The best tip I can give you, having hired and fired people and gone through rough patches with all of this, hire somebody at first. Your first hire them hourly as needed. Because what happens is that a lot of agents get into this. They feel very overwhelmed. They have all this business going on. And what happens? It's like, earlier in the year, or actually this was last year. Last year, I had 12 homes under contract at one time. One time I had 12 homes under contract, had all these timelines, all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then what happened by September, I had 2 under contract, right? So we have a seasonality and a fluctuation of activity in this business. And so what you don't want to do is make a permanent hire and say, oh, I'm going to hire you salaried. I'm going to bring you on full time. And we're going to do this because you have that much business right then. You may not have that for the whole rest of the year. And if you don't, it's going to put you in a very awkward position to go back to them and say, hey, I know you're looking at me for work and I'm still paying you, but I have nothing to give you. Start with an hourly assistant. Start with hourly admin. Because if you start with hourly as needed and you set that expectation, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to find somebody who can help you build these systems, right? So if you say like, oh my gosh, I can't focus, I can't put people into my database, I just don't have time for that. Okay, that's fine. Then find somebody that you can hire hourly as needed to help fill that gap. And as long as you are putting that expectation out there and you say, hey, look, I've just got a couple things that I just flat out don't have time for. Would you mind helping me? And you have that kind of system, then you're going to be golden. And what's going to happen is they're going to free up that time. And then if you have a good working relationship and you continually have enough business to feed them throughout the duration of the year, then you already have somebody who's pre-qualified to take the next step. You have somebody who already knows your operating style. You already have somebody who you have some sort of rapport with. And then when you get to the point that you really feel like, hey, I need to bring somebody on full time, then you can offer that job position to them first and say, hey, hopefully you've enjoyed working with me as much as I've enjoyed working with you. are you in the position to want to take that next step? But do you see how, and maybe you have examples personally, or maybe you've seen examples, but have you seen where people do this and they leapfrog over all the steps to go to hiring full-time without actually going back and assessing everything else and finding out all the other places where there's leverage opportunities? Has anybody done that personally? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's common. And it's not out of the realm of reasonability to understand how we do that, because we get into this and we have so many things going on and we have so much stuff, we get overwhelmed, then we just reach for somebody, say, hey, oh my gosh, I need your help. But then it fizzles out and then we don't have, and then we feel like we've made a bad mistake because we made a wrong hire, then we feel bad. I mean, my first admin I hired her full-time, told her I'd pay her for a whole year. I had her whole year's salary set aside into a bank account, and it was like gangbusters. We were great, spring, summer, and then for the entire 2 last quarters of the year, she just kept looking around going like, have anything for me to do? And it's like, I had like a client event, had a couple of mailers, but that was about it, because so much of the business was front loaded and it all happens at once. But then I didn't realize, and I wasn't thinking far enough advance, and I didn't have a solid enough, consistent enough business to really keep her working for the whole year. And I had to let her go because it was almost a mistake that I had made. It wasn't necessarily that she wasn't functioning well, it's that I wasn't functioning well, because I hadn't gone back to the fundamentals and I hadn't gotten personal leverage in. I hadn't gotten all these other things. And I hadn't started the fundamentals. I never hired somebody, just hourly to help me get systems down pat. I should have done that first. And so if you're in that place where you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to hire somebody full time, hesitate on that. Hesitate on that and go back and really do an audit of your life, an audit of your business, and say, hey, where are other places that I can increase leverage, right? And then I see some of y'all talking right here on the transaction coordinator. I was actually going to get to that one in just a second. If you do not have a transaction coordinator, you should. If you don't have a transaction coordinator, you must really enjoy paperwork a hell of a lot more than I do. Because I'm telling you what, first transaction up, I was like, what do you need? Credit card number, CCV number, mother's maiden name. I don't care. Here's all the information. You do it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do paperwork. I got into this for sales, not that. And so the transaction coordinator can be your first major hire that's not hourly and that's not personal. That's a true business assistant, an administrative assistant.
Hey, Eric,
yes, sir.
I believe that people just have a misconception of that. They think that they can't give up that because that's their job to do that paperwork. And nobody's going to do that paperwork better than they can. And they don't want to lose grip on that transaction.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That is so true. And let me tell you something. I want you to go back and look at your business and figure out where are the places and where are the interactions with your clients that no one else is capable of being a stand-in for. Would you send somebody to go be you at a listing appointment? No, because you are where the investment is coming from, right? Your clients are investing in you, saying, hey, I like you. I like the person making the pitch, right? Do they really care who's writing the green sheet or who's submitting compliance to command? No, because that's not a client-facing activity. You are your business. You ultimately are the representative of your business. And so you need to put yourself in as many places where you cannot be replaced so that you can free up the rest of that time. Because think about it, the time that you take, like I know for a fact, my transaction coordinator, she's worked for me for, I think, 5 years now, 4 or 5 years now. She is phenomenal. Her name is Missy. Missy handles all of that. And she is amazing at it. Can she go on a listing appointment for me? Absolutely not. Do I want her to go on a listing appointment for me? No, I don't want her to go on a buyer appointment either. but she's great at that. But the thing is that for my clients, I am what they're investing in. I need to be there. But by having Missy free up that time, that allows me more ability to go be where no one else can be, right? No one else can substitute me in listing appointments. So I need to go on more listing appointments, more buyer appointments, more consultations. But I can't do more of that if I'm so caught up in the paperwork and thinking that somehow I'm just so good at paperwork that nobody else is going to do it the way that I'm doing it. Well, we're going to talk.
Fear there is also that they're going to miss out on some bit of information that's important. However, I don't know about your TC, but mine copies mine every single email that goes through. I know everything that's going on. The only difference is I didn't have to fill out the additional paperwork, or I didn't have to follow up with the title company, or I didn't have to follow up with the lender. They did it for me.
Exactly. And here's the magic of layering in leverage. And we're kind of going to see that here in just a second. But one of the magic parts of adding leverage, if you really have somebody who's good at what they do, even the control freaks, because God knows I'm a control freak, even the control freaks, when you are demonstrated over time that you can truly actually trust them and they're good at what they do, and maybe, just maybe, I know this might be shocking to you, they might be better at it than you, you can start to open your hand up and allow those tasks to be leveraged out. Because ultimately you have to make a decision at a certain point. Are you going to just do the administrative side of your business, or are you actually going to do the sales side of your business? Because let me tell you something, if you're busy enough, you will not be able to do both. And so you have to make a decision. Are you going to be the one who does all your paperwork for the entire duration of the business? And if that is the case, then you need to start looking for somebody to be your lead listing coordinator and your lead buyer coordinator so that they can go do the listing appointments for you.
I got one more thing to add. Jackie's in here, and Jackie said she was new, right? So Jackie, when you're not lead generating, what are you doing?
Unfortunately, I have an embroidery business that takes my full time right now. So this is something that I'm trying to just go as many classes and.
Okay, you said you're brand new. What you're mostly going to be doing is lead gen. And once you start doing lead gen, you have to go show houses, right? Or you have to go on a listing appointment, right?
Yeah.
That's hopefully the goal. But what happens when you start going on those listing appointments and you go on those other appointments and then you start having to write offers? What happens when you're writing offers? You have 24 hours in a day, so you cannot always be.
Either I do that and stop showing.
Yeah, so you're gonna stop doing one of those things. So if you're negotiating offers all the time, you don't have time to or you're in the middle of the paperwork, you don't have time to be doing it. So he started this off perfectly by talking about those things that you can leverage. This is another one of those leverage pieces. You need to be lead generating and going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and then practicing role playing. That's what Bold teaches you. So if you're off and doing paperwork, that's not one of those 5 things that make you money. Therefore, your production is going to go down. But I wanted to point you out because you're a new agent, and that's the first thing I see new agents do is they get caught in that trap of, okay, I got a piece of business. Now I'm going to go show house. Now I'm going to go write an offer. Now I have to stay and hold their hand forever. And then they're wondering why they're not having another piece of business because they stopped lead generating.
Yeah, exactly. Without leverage, you get so focused on just that one thing that you have in hand that everything else falls aside. And that is the telltale difference between somebody who truly runs a business and somebody who is just a single agent who is just selling a few houses a year to friends, right? If all you want out of this is to just sell 1 or 2 homes a year to just family and friends who come up, then okay, great. Maybe you don't need leverage. Maybe you don't need to do that. But if you actually want to have a real estate business, you need to operate it as a business. I mean, look at companies, it's like you have these companies all over the world. Like let's just think of Marriott, for example. Is Marriott a one-man show? Absolutely not. Do you think that a single hotel can run with one single person? Even a single motel, one single thing, one person? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so you are ultimately a business. And the sooner you embrace that you are in charge of a business, the better off you're going to be. But one of the fundamental keys of running a business and owning a business is having the leverage. Be where you cannot be replaced, and that's it. That is it. Just like Ryan said, you cannot be replaced in lead generation. You cannot be replaced in listing appointments. You cannot be replaced by role playing. You cannot be replaced when you're going through scripts and you're having objection handling, right? If I'm at a listing appointment and somebody says, oh, well, I know the market is great, and I think we're going to see another 30% year-over-year equity growth this year. That's an objection, because guess what? The market's already shifting. The market's already shifted. It's starting its turn, right? You are the only one who's educated enough and has the skill set capable of being in that room and having those conversations. And so the more rooms like that you can be in, that's where you need to be, period.
Something, and like, keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Your stuff. That is exactly where it is. Be where your feet are.
5 things.
And so the other thing that I like to remind you of, and this is something that actually a team leader mentioned to me about 6 months ago, because I was talking about something. And he said, well, he said, one of the things that I've realized is that you are paid in accordance to the complexity of the problems you are capable of solving. You are paid in accordance to the complexity of the problems you are capable of solving. Now, really think about that. That puts it into perspective, right? If you are a business owner and you're running this business and it's great and it's successful, your mind naturally has to be one that solves complex problems. And the better you get at objection handling, which is essentially complex problem solving, the better paid you're going to be. So be sure, yeah, exactly. Like Elon Musk, like these incredibly complex problems and tasks, the better you get at solving those, the better paid you're going to be. And contract to close is one of those things that, let's be honest, the process really doesn't change. So the pay for it is static. The pay for it is static, right? You pay just about the same amount for a transaction coordinator anywhere in North America that you go, because the process pretty much is exactly the same. Whereas when you're on an appointment and you're interacting with people, you're selling a bunch of different homes. I mean, like at least here in Georgia, we have houses that, sit on freaking cliffs at the end, and we have topography here. And so, we've got basements, we have houses that back up to creeks, we have houses that back up to lakes and floodplains up on peaks, steep driveways. And, every geographical location is going to have their issues. And so we are the reason, we are the people who solve those problems. Be where the biggest problems are, be the solvers to those biggest problems, and you're going to follow the money the whole way there. Does that make sense? Y'all hearing me? Awesome. So at the bottom of page 160, you see the pros and cons of hiring a licensed assistant. Now, once you get past personal leverage, and we're going to kind of go more quickly through the latter part of this, because just based on what we talked about at the beginning, I think what we've covered so far probably gives a lot of you a very large list of homework to work on. But once you've personally leveraged, once you've gotten systems down, once you've hired hourly and as needed, and once you've hired a transaction coordinator, and then you're still needing leverage, and you're like, yeah, you know what? I need a full-time assistant. Then at the bottom of 160, that's a great breakdown of the difference between hiring a licensed assistant and hiring a non-licensed assistant. There are pros and cons to both. But then as we go to item number 2 on our list, which is hiring talent, this is on page 161. The whole first paragraph talks about how important it is to find the right fit for the job, how important it is to find good people for the job. And then underneath it, it gives you some bullet points at the bottom of 161 that are lead indicators if you made a good hire or not. You can see talent pushes to get answers. Non-talent will have to be pushed to want answers. Now you can read through these, but there's a theme in this that I want to point out that I think is critically important, that is kind of not written, but a subcontext to this, that is a fundamental learning tool for everyone when you talk about running a business. The difference between talent pushes you constantly. Non-talent requires to push. The key differentiating factor, and I want you to write this down, proactive versus reactive. The best talent in the world is proactive, not reactive. And if you look in every single one of the bullet points on the bottom of 161, that shows you the differences between the right hire or the wrong hire, talent, non-talent. The key differentiating factor through all of them is someone who is proactive and someone who is reactive. And the same goes for you as a person. Same goes for you as a business. The best businesses, going back to like Elon Musk, think of all the things he's done. All of the companies have been very proactive, thinking of things before they're needed, right? And trying to fill a gap in necessity. So really think about the difference between proactive people and reactive people. The best people you're going to surround yourself with are proactive people. Surround yourself with proactive people, hire proactive people. And then one other thing when we talk about hiring is another great quote that I picked up along the way. And if you follow me around long enough, you'll hear me say, oh, one of my favorite quotes. It's a very long list of favorite quotes, but in the context of all the information I've collected over the last like 10 plus years, it's a small list. But one of my favorite quotes, it says, just because it's a good opportunity doesn't mean it's the right opportunity. And just because it's a good person doesn't mean it's the right person. And you really have to fundamentally get that part down. Just because it's the right person, just because it's the right opportunity, just because it's a good person and a good opportunity doesn't mean it's the right person or the right opportunity. And sometimes you'll have both. You'll have the right person, but offering them the wrong opportunity. And sometimes the opposite. Sometimes it'll be a great opportunity and a good person, but not the right person. So you have to figure out those details. And that's one of the keys when you talk about management and you talk about leadership, is finding the right opportunity and the right person and making sure that they go together. Because there's plenty of good people out there and there's plenty of good opportunities, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right one, right? And so it's really finding that differentiation between good people, good opportunities, right opportunities. And then on 163, you'll see the cost of the bad hire and the opportunity of a great hire. It's important when you're adding talent, you just want to know that it's just so fundamentally important to get the right people in the right places. And remember, one of the things that is, at least I've always heard it through KW, and if you haven't heard it yet, remember to be slow to hire and quick to fire. Slow to hire, quick to fire. Make sure that you always remember that. Now, moving right along to page 164. This is our third and final point, train and consult. And on pages 164 and 165, you'll see two charts. The chart on the left, training and consulting the right way. And then on the right, you'll see training consulting the way most people do it. Now, what I think is so interesting when we talk about teams and running businesses and being rainmakers in real estate, it is very common to see very poorly managed teams in real estate. And the reason being is that real estate, anybody can get a license and immediately hop into being a team and immediately hop into hiring admin and agents and all these people with having no skill set at all to be able to manage those people or run a business. And so what you end up with is you end up with a ton of people without leadership or management capability, but really without leadership or management training, trying to manage a bunch of people. And they do it very ineffectively, and they do it the way that's on the top of page 165, which is hiring, saying, hey, just follow me around, pick up on what I'm doing, and they just do it. And the analogy, which I can't help but find amusing, is they have written under here, these agents are practicing seagull management. They do very little training or none at all, and then they just swoop in, make a lot of noise, dump on people, and fly off. I love that seagull management. That cracks me up. But that is truly how most people manage. And that's not leadership. And you have to really fundamentally learn when you are in a position of power, you're in a position of management, you're in a position of leadership, you're in a high level position, and you're running a business. Something I really want you guys to write down and commit to memory. There is a difference between management and leadership. There is a difference between management and leadership. And you need to be the leader of your business, not necessarily just a manager. Because most people I find that get into real estate, the job they were leaving probably had a really ineffective manager. There's so many ineffective managers out there that it puts a bad taste in our mouth. So when you hear manager, it's like, oh, okay. But it has a different connotation, and rightfully so, to being a leader. When you think about it and you say, oh, well, who do you want to work? Like, do you think Gary Keller is a manager? Or do you think Gary Keller is a leader? Right? That right there is such a great example of the difference between management and leadership. And you really need to step into leadership so that you're not just a micromanager. And so what happens is that when you do have talent and you find the right person, you find the right opportunity, and you nail that down, you have to do the activities that are on page 164, which is train, take action, show them, demonstrate to them, meet with them, and then consult them with accountability. And do you see something that's interesting is that they have a dotted line going back to train. And I think a lot of that has to do with knowing that when you are in a position that you're teaching or training or educating, we also are learning. I love going around and doing stuff like this and going and training. It forces me to go back through and read this again. I've learned a few different things that I wrote by teaching this class. Every time you're in that leadership opportunity and you're managing and you're looking and you're being in a position of training and consulting, you're going to be learning. And so even if you don't have a team, I would really encourage you to lean back in and look around yourself and say, hey, who can I help and who can I do? Because if you want to be better yourself, make people around you better. If you want to be better yourself, make people around you better. Because if you do that first, you get into your market center, you train, you take new agents under your wing, you coach them, you be accountable, and you do that long enough, you do that good enough. By the time you get to the point that your business is well leveraged and you've run through this organizational model and you've done it at a high level, then you actually will have the skill set to be a good leader, not just a manager. You'll be able to identify talent, but not just identify talent, but hold on to talent. And if you can hold on to talent and retain talent, make people around you better, that conversely makes your business better and it makes you better.
Thank you, Eric.
You bet.
I appreciate your time. And to add on to what you're saying, the region has been doing the career visioning series, and we recently went through the whole process of showing what the future was, the past was, all that stuff. And right now, tomorrow, Mark Olish is going to be doing at the Clearwater Market Center. He's going to be doing 30, 60, 90, which is setting your people up for success once you've hired them. So if you're interested in that, I would highly suggest you join him at the Clearwater Market Center in person to do that. And he's discounted the rate even. It's going to be a great class. He's a master at that. So I would join him. Eric, if anybody needs to get a hold of you for referrals in Atlanta, Georgia, and surrounding areas, how do they do so?
I am going to put that in the chat as we speak.
Awesome.
And I can't hit shift, so this is apparently going to come in as different messages. But this is my cell phone number I'm putting in here. Feel free to shoot me a text. And then that's my email address. And then if you would like, if you're on social media as much as I am, that is also my Instagram handle as well. So feel free to follow me, reach out. And yeah, if you guys are ever in the Atlanta area, hit me up. I'd love to show you around. And if you've got any clients or any of your friends or family or coworkers who are moving up to the Atlanta area, feel free to reach out to me. I would be more than happy to help. Well, I hope you guys took away some nuggets. I hope you guys got some good ahas from the class. If you have some really great ahas, shoot me a text and let me know what they are. Shoot me a DM on Instagram and let me know what your ahas are, because I love hearing what people have picked up from different things, because it helps me when I go to teach again, the things that other people hear when I talk about them. So guys, thank you so much.
If I come up and visit you, or am I going to get you, or am I going to get leverage of you?
That depends on what you want to do. You know, that depends on what you want to do. If you want to do something kind of boring or something like that, I may leverage that out. If you want to go,
I can just get there and all of a sudden Uber shows up for me and starts taking me around.
So, okay, that's actually really funny. One thing on that, my brother and his wife just came to visit 2 weekends ago. And I've got a driver who helps take me to the airport and back and everything. And I sent him down to pick him up, and my brother called me from the back of the guy's SUV. He's like, "Did you really send somebody to come pick me up?" I was like, "I was showing houses, buddy. Like, I don't have time to drive down there and do this."
Good job.
Awesome.
At least you thought about enough to send him an Uber.
Hey, exactly. I was like, you should be grateful. I could have sent you, a dirty, 1994, Uber pool. Yeah. So at least be grateful that I sent you an SUV. Okay.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it, my friend.
You bet. Not a problem at all.
We're not.